Hi, everybody. This is Alpha. I'm the host of Stories from Behind the Counter. Before we get started in any of these episodes, I just wanted to give a little disclaimer. Some of these stories are not exactly family friendly, especially not very child friendly. Some of them do use some strong language. Some of them do talk about some rather vile things sometimes. Others is just not exactly something some people might want their children or anyone else around them to hear. Not exactly public friendly. If you have a job in general, you know what I'm talking about. Some things that happen in life are just not public, perfect conversation. So, with that in mind, please keep in mind where you're listening to this, who you're listening to it around, and how you're going to listen to it. Also, if you have any stories that you would like to share with me, please send them my way. I am always up for more stories. I only have so much as my own. So if you have anything you want to share with me, please feel free to share them with me in my email account. Send them to workwithalphag@gmail.com. That is workwithalphag@gmail.com. One last thing I wanted to remind you all about is please make sure you're following me. I am not just on one platform. I am on Spotify, Patreon, Castbox, Podbean, and Buzzsprout. So please, if you have any of those, Patreon is probably going to help me out the best, and hopefully later on it'll be able to help you guys out as well. For $1 a month, you'll be getting ad-free episodes, as well as later on I'm hoping to be able to do Q&As, just be able to talk with you guys, one-on-one conversations, group chats, whatever. So please make sure you're checking it all out. Let's get into the episode. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Stories from Behind the Counter, and I am your host, Alpha. Today, I want to give a little extra disclaimer. I know I just played one right before the intro music, but this is just an extra disclaimer. This particular episode is all vulgar stories. This is going to be some pretty nasty, crazy stuff with a lot of foul language. So please, again, keep in mind where, when, and who you're listening to this around. That being said, let's get into it with one of the, can't believe I'm going to say this about this, the slower, calmer stories, starting with the lady who walked into my store 100% naked. So, this was when I was the store manager of the small little retail place I've brought up before. I've been in retail for about 10 years already, and honestly, just when you think you've seen pretty much everything, especially in a smaller town, we wouldn't have to worry about much, right? Well, you'd be wrong. I'm on my day off. It's about 8 p.m. and I get a text from my manager on duty saying that a lady walked in naked. So obviously I don't respond with a text. I just flat out called her. She answered the phone. Hello. And I immediately went, now when you say naked, and she cut me off laughing. She responded with, the woman was wearing nothing but a satchel bag. No shoes, no socks, nothing. Obviously, I asked for more detail at this point. Well, was she drunk? Did she seem mentally coherent? Or what led to this? My manager on duty said no, she seemed fine. She was totally coherent. She didn't smell like alcohol or drugs or anything. She said something about her clothes being covered in shit. I mean, other than that, we really couldn't tell of anything wrong with her. She claims that she had her old shitty clothes that she couldn't wear, and that's why she walked into the store naked. So pretty much, we're just led to believe that she at some point shit herself, and she just completely stripped naked, and she was walking around the entire town until she got to us. Now, when I get in the next day, I looked at the camera, because apparently I hate myself, and kind of had to see if she was messing with me. She was not. You can see on the camera that the lady just walks through the parking lot. So she wasn't driving a car or anything. She was just walking around town, naked as a jaybird. with just a small satchel bag that didn't even cover up one of her exposed butt cheeks. And she just walks into the store like there's nothing out of the normal going on here. I was able to see a customer at the register putting his things on the counter, waiting for the cashier to make his way up and ring him out. As he finishes emptying his handbasket, he looked up just at the perfect time to see this naked lady walk in. You can see it on his face. He's looking around like, what's going on here? Did anyone else just see this? Is anyone else here? Is this happening? Finally, the cashier gets to the register, and the naked lady had already walked off. So I could kind of see him in the camera having a discussion with the cashier saying, "Oh my gosh, did you see that naked lady walking in?" And they have a back and forth. I don't know exactly what was said because sadly I don't have audio. But he just pretty much said, "No, I didn't see it, but let me get my manager." And so he grabbed the walkie, called the manager on duty, let her know what was going on. The worst part about all of this is that the lady who was completely naked didn't even go over to the clothes or anything. She had no sign of embarrassment on her face. She just starts shopping down the refrigerated section. Well, my manager on duty walked up and handled the situation like a boss. She didn't even look fazed on the camera. She just walked up, and I see her body language kind of just saying, like, "You need to leave." And that's when the customer explained that her clothes were apparently covered in shit. The MOD tried to get her to leave, but she refused. So, knowing it would probably just be more fuss than it was worth, decided not to call the cops and just took the lady over to the clothes section and said, "You need to put some clothes on now, or I'm calling the cops." So they're sitting there, they're looking through the clothes, and the lady's just fingering through all the clothes like it's a normal day. At some point, I see my manager just grab an extra big t-shirt and say, "Ma'am, please, you need to cover yourself." So the customer says, "Oh, okay," grabs the shirt and just rests it on top of her, covering her breast and barely covering her vagina. Didn't put it on, she just rested it in the front of her, so her ass is still showing, everything else is still showing, and we still have customers in the store. Finally, we got her clothed, we made her pay, and we had her leave. But boy, there are just some things you can't unsee. And just when you thought you've seen everything or dealt with anything you could possibly think of, someone or something comes along to prove you wrong. Anyway, moving on. So this was the time I worked at a fast food place, and I was cleaning the bathrooms, and I found something that I truly feel kind of scarred me for life, considering how young I was. So I'm at pretty much my first job ever. Like most people, I'm working fast food. Well, at one point, I had injured my shoulder while training for my martial arts, and I couldn't work the food line or the grill or anywhere in the back pretty much. So they usually had me taking orders and taking care of cleaning up the lobby and the restrooms. My general manager at the time comes up to me and says that a customer had just complained about the men's restroom, saying that it was filthy, and she asked me to clean it up. We were getting ready to get hit by a couple of buses, and it was a very important day. So I grabbed my mop, my broom, some gloves, and I went into the men's restroom, and I blocked it off, thinking it was going to be absolutely trashed in there. I didn't want to deal with people trying to walk in and out all over the place while I was trying to mop and clean God knows what. But much to my surprise, I didn't really see a whole lot wrong at first glance in the restroom. It looked rather decent in my opinion, to be honest. I mean, I swept up a couple of paper pieces and checked all the stalls, made sure they had toilet paper. Everything looked fine. But when I got to the handicap stall, I saw what the customer was talking about. The toilet itself was just covered in shit. The seat, down the sides, and even all the pipes that connect to the wall that allow the toilet to flush. Of course, that is something that most of us probably have dealt with if we've ever been in a public restroom, just in general. Whether it's a big named place or a small town gas station, it happens. But what really took me by surprise wasn't even all this stuff on the toilet and the walls or whatever. When I went over to the toilet and I saw a black wad on the ground, I was slightly concerned. I poked it with the broom to see what it was, and to my horror, it was a pair of boxers that were crusty, and I'm not even exaggerating, it looked like it was covered with every bodily fluid possible. I promptly leaned my broom up against the wall of the bathroom, walked up to my manager and I attempted to tell her what I had found. Sadly, all I could do was kind of stammer. I said, "Boss, I, I, um, well," and of course my boss just sits there and is like, "Well, spit it out, man. What's going on?" I tried to continue, but all I could do was continue to stammer my words. I, uh, uh, well, obviously my general manager is getting a little low on patience at this point. So she calls over one of the shift managers and says, "Sir, will you please follow this gentleman to the restroom and figure out what is going on?" He said, "Yeah, sure, no problem. Come on, let's go." So silently, I walked him into the restroom, pointed to the stall, and he saw it and was like, "Yeah, that happens sometimes." And then I said, "No, look behind the toilet." And that's when he saw the wadded up pair of boxers. Without saying anything, he just walked right past me. And the manager reached down to grab the wad, not really paying attention. At least that's all I can assume. And I almost yelled at him, "No, don't!" The manager looked at me confused, and I said, "You might want to take a better look, sir." He ended up taking a closer look without touching it, and he almost screamed, jumping back, just absolutely shocked. So the manager and I walk out of the restroom. We walked up to the general manager, and the shift manager stammered just like I did, unable to tell her what we saw. It was a first for him, too. Finally, being so annoyed with having two people unable to tell her what's going on in her store, the general manager went into the restroom, looked at the corner of the stall, and we could hear her from almost all the way in the back. She just screams out, "Jesus Christ, are you kidding me?" So the general manager walked out with an even more annoyed look on her face. And she just said, "Get some gloves, get a broom, get a dustpan, sweep it up, throw it all away. Throw it all away. The broom, the dustpan, the mop, everything. And then you go and you bleach the hell out of that place." Yeah, I felt bad for the shift manager. He was the one that ended up having to take care of it because a lot of companies don't allow low men on the totem pole to deal with bodily fluids. It's usually a management or a maintenance issue. That's one thing that I sadly don't think I'll ever be able to forget. Alright, moving on to the next story. This is the story of the old man shitting in the urinal. I'm working at a big retail place as a department manager at the time, and I've been working with this particular store manager for about a year. That's about as long as he had been there. He was a very, very nice guy, never quick to temper. I never heard him say anything above damn or hell. He didn't even like it if he heard someone say something as simple as "what the hell" while working. That's just how he was. Good old Southern boy. Well, I was about halfway through my day, and I was just finishing up my lunch. I go in so I could use the restroom. As I walk in, I look up and I see this elderly man just squatting over the urinal. I didn't even get the chance to say anything to him or even really register what was going on when he looked up at me and said, "Well, when nature calls, nature calls. The other stalls were taken up when I got in here." And he went back to his business, grunting and pooping. At that point, I just walked right out of the restroom. I forgot I even had to go. Well, I ended up walking directly over to the manager's office where my store manager and another co-manager were talking. I knocked on the door and I was like, "Hey boss, I really don't know how to handle this one." So he calmly looks up and says, "Well, lay it on me, man. What's going on? Let's figure it out." So I told him what I walked into, and his face immediately turned red as a tomato. He pretty much immediately started yelling, although I could tell it wasn't trying to be aggressive toward me. He was still kind of yelling at me. He goes, "Alpha, you kick him the fuck out of my store. He's shitting in our urinals. What the fuck is wrong with people? You flip the fuck out on him next time, Alpha. You kick him right the fuck out of here." And he pretty much immediately runs out as he's still screaming to try and see if he can catch the old man in the restroom. The co-manager and I are sitting there. I'm in complete shock at what's happened between the old man and then just seeing my store manager cussing up a storm like he's a sailor. I was completely shook. My co-manager is just laughing her ass off. Her face is turning different colors because she can't breathe. She's laughing so hard. She was apparently enjoying herself. It was a funny day for her. But apparently by the time the store manager got into the restroom, the old man was gone. But the evidence, shall we say, was still right there. Obviously, he was not happy. He blocked off the restroom and called maintenance over immediately to make sure it didn't clog or cause any other issues. That was a day that I'm sure is burned into both of their memories almost as much as it was mine. Okay, so moving on to the last couple of stories. This one, this is more the craziness of overnights when people just don't really care anymore. And, well, you'll be damned what people will say sometimes. The first story is a conversation between me and another coworker while we were working the overnight inventory team at a big retail place. And the second story is going to be from the perspective of a couple of coworkers of mine that were talking at a different point at the same night, and how we collectively completely scarred a poor young woman that transferred in. She was transferred in as a co-manager, and she was very highly religious. I believe she was Mormon, and she was very reserved. And she's dealing with an overnight crew. It sounds like we've been working on an oil rig or a Navy ship for the last 20 years. Well, it's the start of the night. Like I said, me and another coworker are on the inventory control in the back room for a big old store. Our job is to scan the merchandise in the back room and send it out to the stockers so that when they're done with the new freight that came in on the truck that night, they can work everything we send out to them. The usual team we had was on average about 6 people. That night, we had 2, me and one other person. Mind you, it is near the holidays, so things are getting a little more crazy as it is a big grocery store. So there's a lot of freight to push, and it's just not possible with 2 people. So the other person and I are talking, and we're trying to come up with a plan to try and make the night go as easily as possible. We go to our stations, we look at the workload that we're supposed to get done with just the 2 of us, and for some reason I couldn't help myself. I don't know what possessed me to yell this out across the entire back room, but I just yelled out, "Well, fuck me running with the donkey dick. Boy, you seeing this?" To which my coworker pops his head around the corner and replies, "Did you just say fuck me running with a donkey dick?" I said, "I sure did. Fuck me running with a donkey dick. How the hell are we gonna do all this?" Mind you, again, we are yelling this across the entire back room. Thank God it wasn't the sales floor, because it was the beginning of our shift. We still had a couple hours before customers were gone. Luckily enough, customers can't usually hear us back there. But my co-manager did. So as we're yelling all this out, my coworker is just like, "Oh, okay, well, fuck me running with a donkey dick it is tonight." And we laughed it off, calmed down, we got to working. We pretty much had already forgotten we had a new co-manager transfer into our store. So we weren't thinking as it was. We were just getting in, pretty much still waking up. And this poor co-manager hears all of this from the office. I'm not sure exactly what transpired over the radio between her and the support manager for the night shift at the time, but about 10 minutes later, my coworker and I had finished our first couple of departments and we were trying to figure out where we were going to tackle next. As we were talking, the support manager comes up. He's slightly red, like he's embarrassed, and he's scratching his head. One of us looked up and said, "What's going on?" to the support manager. He replies, "Well, I hear you guys are having a rather interesting conversation back here." My coworker and I just cracked up laughing as it dawned on us that the new manager had to have heard us and all the obscenities that we were yelling back and forth. Obviously, she did not like it too much. So we apologized. We said that we'd do our best to keep our conversations at work a little less vulgar, and we just went about our night. Well, here's where the second story comes in. Later on that night, as the stockers from the floor are bringing their overstock freight and their cardboard to be thrown away, baled, all their trash, whatever, some of the other stockers are apparently also in a mood to have rather interesting conversations of their own. There's two men that were probably in their 40s or 50s at the time, and they were talking with a young man that was barely out of high school, 18, 19, something like that. Apparently, the young man had informed them of his, shall we say, inexperience in certain areas of life. So, of course, men being men, they figured they'd try to give him some advice about a few things that they had dealt with in the past. So as they get into the back room to start billing their cardboard, they're telling this young man that while he's giving anal to a girl, he needs to make sure he has a towel nearby so that when he pulls out, he can wipe everything off before she sees it, because if she sees it, he'd probably never get lucky again in any way, shape, or form. At least not with that particular person. As they're finishing that particular part of their story, who else was to walk in but this poor little innocent Mormon co-manager that had just transferred in. Her face went so pale, I thought I could see through her. Her eyes were as wide as saucers, and she looked like she could either faint, throw up, or run. Once the guys realized that she was there, they looked over at her with the biggest smiles on their faces, like it was a normal mealtime conversation, and said, "Oh, hey boss, how's it going?" The co-manager just turned and left without saying anything. I believe she transferred out within a couple of months after that. She went to days, found out our day crew wasn't much better, and she decided to go back home. Come to think of it, we did that to a lot of managers at that store. Anyway, moving on. One last story. This is going to be a real quick snap of a story for you just to finish this out. This story comes from another former coworker of mine. We're going to call her Kay. Kay says, when I first came to the small town that I live in now, I was a CSM, or Customer Service Manager, which is a manager on the front end. I was standing by the front restrooms when I hear this lady screaming, "Help! Help me! Someone help me, please!" So, obviously, I run over, try to see what's going on. When I get in there, in the very first stall was a very large African-American woman, covered in shit. Literally, head to toe, pants around her ankles, poop all over the walls. It was a mess. She needed help cleaning herself, and she needed some clothes. I ended up having to go out and try and find her something to be able to put on, and try to help her get on her way as quick as possible. I'm pretty sure that was not in my job description. Well, I can definitely tell you, Kay, I've had a couple of experiences like that where you go very above and beyond your job description just to try and take care of a embarrassing or maybe even disgusting situation for someone else. Mine was the old guy that called me pretty that I brought up, I believe, in episode 1. That was an interesting one. It was not something I was necessarily prepared to deal with, but hey, we do it anyway, right? I feel your pain there. Thanks for your story, Kay. And I think on that note, we're going to go ahead and wrap this episode up and call it a day. Thanks again for listening, guys. Obviously, I try to keep everyone's identities safe so that they can be protected so there's no backlash from any of these companies or anyone else for any reason whatsoever. So for everyone sending in their stories, I thank you. Whatever I call you on the show is all you will ever be known as. With that being said, I want to give a big shout out and a big thank you to Denise Esparza for the artwork. She's the one who did the little thumbnail that you see when I upload all of my episodes, and I do look forward to working with her for any changes in artwork that I decide to do later. If you're interested in seeing anything else and more artwork that she does, you can follow her on Nisi Art on Instagram. That's NEISSE_ART on Instagram. Also, big shout out and a thank you to Nivation. He's the one responsible for the music you hear at the beginning and the ending of the episodes. If you wish to follow him and see what else he provides musically, that is Nivation. Spotify is the only platform that he gave me to shout him out on, but I just wanted to make sure he got the credit for what he did for me. I really do appreciate everything you guys have done for me to help me get this show started and to keep it going. Thank you guys. I really honestly could not have done this without you. For everyone else, thank you again for all your stories. I hope that you guys are enjoying this. One last reminder, please do not forget to check me out pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast. That's where I'm trying to get to. Obviously, the biggest ones I'm going to be on are Patreon and Spotify, but check me out, see where you can find me. Patreon will be the biggest help for me. And as I'm pretty sure I've stated before, that will also help you guys later on. I'm hoping to be able to do live Q&As. I'm hoping to be able to do conversations, one-on-one chats, group chats. I don't care. Maybe like some of the other people I've listened to doing podcasts, we can even make trips out of this and just make it a community. I just want to have fun with this. So I hope you guys are enjoying it, and I hope you can help make the community I'm looking to make. Thanks again, guys. This is Alpha signing off. See you next episode.